welcome back to the Southern Citizen Podcast. I'm the host, Hope Newsom Staples, and if you're new here, the premise of this show is pretty simple. I love talking to these Southern citizens, and to qualify, you've got to be from the American South, and you've also got to be 75 years or older. Back in 2024, I sat down with an unlikely Southern citizen, Holly Green, and listened to her journey from Berkeley, California, to small-town Mississippi, and everywhere in between. During her career, she's been a Yellow Jacket, a Wildcat, a Sycamore, and a Hawkeye. But most importantly, Holly has been a forerunner in the field of collegiate women's sports, particularly in athletic training, and she spills the tea about it all. So go ahead and do a few lunges, a few squats, and some high knees. I wouldn't want you to pull anything while listening to this episode. Okay, you ready to get started?
Yep.
All right, can you please introduce yourself for us?
My name is Holly Wilson Green.
Okay, Holly, and when were you born?
I was born on Christmas Day, a Christmas surprise from my parents.
Okay, and were you born at home or were you born at a hospital?
In the hospital.
In the hospital.
Barely.
Okay. Barely. And what age are you today?
77.
So, obviously, your accent sounds a little different than some of my other guests, which I think is amazing. So, can you tell me, where were you born?
I was born in Oakland, California, but I grew up in Berkeley, California.
Okay. So, could you possibly share some of the story surrounding your birth?
My birth. I was not due for at least a month, if not more, when I was born.
Mm-hmm.
And so I interrupted Christmas dinner. My arrival did. And I don't know, I heard that I might have been born in an elevator, but I'm not sure.
Like the hospital elevator?
Yes, the hospital elevator, but I'm not sure. And
Wow.
I mean, I was a wee one.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, way back in 1946, I guess I was lucky to survive. I was in an incubator, but only overnight, apparently, is what I hear.
Mm-hmm.
I never, got the full story.
Yeah.
And a lot of infants at that time, the high oxygen content of an incubator affected their optic nerves, and so they lost sight. I think Stevie Wonder is one of those individuals, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So, yeah. And I think I was in the hospital like a month, gaining weight, but I was raring to go. I mean, it was pretty obvious that I was raring to go.
It was on after that, right?
Yeah.
Do you know how much you weighed when you were born?
2 pounds, 13 ounces.
So did she just go into premature labor, or?
I think there's a story, but I didn't connect the dots,
Okay.
and my parents had already passed away.
Yeah.
But my mother was taking care of my father's mother who had cancer.
Okay.
And it was a week before Christmas, and she died in our house. And I have the feeling that that might have caused my mom to go into premature labor, but I never asked.
Just maybe the stress of the situation.
The stress of all that, too. So, who knows?
I love that story, though. And
Yeah.
you're named Holly for a reason, then,
Yeah,
right?
I regret never having asked my parents what they were going to call me,
Mm-hmm.
because they had to come up with a name that was holiday-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And the only ones I can come up with are Carol, Noel, and Holly, and I'm glad they picked Holly because it kind of fits.
I love that name. Do you have a middle name?
I was named after my grandmother, Etta,
Etta.
and so I have unfond memories of my mother saying, "Hollyetta, you get in this house right now, Hollyetta," So,
I love that name, though, Hollyetta.
but I dropped it because when I finished college, I was well known for my maiden name,
Mm-hmm.
and I had done a lot of writing, and it would have just got lost. So sorry, Grandma, got kicked out.
Sorry, Etta, huh?
Yeah, I never liked it though. Okay. Sorry, it was too old-fashioned,
I think it's very unique. You
Yeah.
know? It probably could have a comeback today. Folks
yeah.
like those older
Yeah,
names,
probably.
Well, so Holly, I always like to ask my guests, what would you say is your earliest memory? Or even if it's just an experience or a place.
Oh, I remember being in the hospital over Thanksgiving. For a 7-year-old, it's kind of scary.
Okay.
And they served ham, and I was mad.
Because you don't
And-
like ham?
Yeah, and broth. every meal was broth. But I had a concussion. I fell off a merry-go-round, and a cop found me and threw me in the back of his car. The story goes. And the hospital was like 2 blocks away. So before they got hold of my mother, because I wasn't with her at the time, I was with a friend's and her mother, I was in the ER, and they had x-rayed me from head to toe, and I spent like 4 or 5 days in the hospital. I mean, back then, and that would have been about 53.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yep.
Okay, so another question I always ask my guests, because most folks are lifelong Southerners, but I think you'll have something to say about this. What memory comes to mind when I say the name Elvis Presley?
That bingo game.
Okay, go back. What were you telling me earlier before
I
we
told you
started?
I won a bingo game when I was like 6 or 7 or 8 in there. And it was like $8, which
You
was
won $8?
Yeah, which was a lot of money then, to that age of kid. And I bought a cowboy hat. And I remember that Elvis Presley was singing either Hound Dog or Jailhouse Rock. And I liked Elvis then.
Were you, like, when you were in the store buying it?
No, but it was the time frame.
Okay.
And I liked Elvis then, but not so much now.
Okay.
Sorry.
What sort of influence did he have in Berkeley, California, you think, back then?
Oh,
Were people paying attention to Elvis?
I wasn't too much of a music person listening to the radio or anything. I was too busy. I was out there on the sports fields. Come on.
Exactly.
The sun was shining. The birds were singing. Hey.
So you weren't trying to listen to music?
No, not at all.
It's just interesting to hear that perspective, because so many folks here, since Elvis is from Mississippi, and there were so many people that just had really, really strong feelings about Elvis. So,
but right now I've gotten into like Willie Nelson and Kenny Rogers and Johnny Cash. I mean, I appreciate that music now, which I never did when I was out in California. Of course, then also I didn't listen. I was more of a folk music, Mamas and Papas, Glenn Yarborough, Rod McEwen.
So those
but I love Bette Midler.
Okay.
I can listen to her forever. In fact, I've seen her on stage. So,
awesome. I love that. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your childhood. So where did you say you grew up?
In Berkeley, California.
What does that mean when you say Berkeley?
It's a crazy place. I mean, we had beatniks before beatniks were in. We had hippies, everything. It was crazy.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know. Okay. The weather, for one, people could gravitate to an area where if anything, they got wet with the rains.
Was there like a university there?
Oh,
that
yeah,
you think
Berkeley.
Brought people in.
University of California, Berkeley.
Okay,
was
do you think that influenced, though, the population?
Yes.
Yeah.
UC Berkeley was 3 blocks up the road from our high school.
Okay.
And there's only one high school in Berkeley, which is interesting because the population of that high school is like 3,500 people.
Okay, yeah.
And I think there were 4 or 5 junior highs, and it seemed like one of them was predominantly Asian, one was predominantly Afro-American, and one was white, and I think the other one was a mixture. And they came together, all these races and cultures, for the first time in high school. It was a great learning experience for everybody.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, so, and because UC Berkeley had such a reputation for being weird, and eccentric, I guess I'd say, crazy.
Right.
We'd gravitate up there after school and stuff when we weren't playing sports.
So there was always something going on.
There was always something, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, the day of the sit-in, that famous sit-in where they were trying to get freedom of speech, I happened to go up there, being clueless to the situation that was going on at UC Berkeley. And I was going to talk to them about registering, but I didn't. And my brother was involved, and he jumped out a window, or so he told me, to prevent being arrested.
Wow.
So.
Okay, so tell me about your parents.
My parents. My mother was a nurse,
Uh-huh.
and the only reason she became a nurse was because it was free education.
Okay.
You get to go to school for the scut work.
Uh-huh.
We'll teach you. But it was
Right.
probably the best education a nurse could have because it was all hands-on.
Yeah.
Well, in textbooks.
Was she from California?
She was born in Nampa, Idaho.
Okay.
And I don't know how she found her way to California. Actually, from what I understand,
Mm-hmm.
she met my father in the operating room. He was her patient.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was born in Glendale, California, Southern Cal.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know what he was doing. He was going to school, I think, college, but I don't know what his major was, but he loved English. And then the war, that war, WW2. I have his draft card, and it says, report to the Army recruiting station. Well, he outsmarted them and went to the Navy recruiting station the day before and raised his right hand and said, yeah, I'll do it.
So he was involved in World War II.
Yeah, World War II in the South Pacific on a ship, and he made it home.
Wow.
And my mom, there were stories of her commuting to New York to meet him and stuff like that, which must have been quite the experience.
I bet. What was his role in the war?
He was a storekeeper.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
He took care of all the supplies, track of all the supplies. And I kidded him. I never talked much about the Navy when we were growing up as kids. We had his uniforms and stuff and a few of his things, but he'd use a few phrases, but like, hey, Dad, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then when I joined the Navy, he didn't talk about his experiences in World War II, but he really enjoyed us taking him over to the chow hall where I was doing my reserve duty and, seeing the sailors and all that. And one of the last memories I have of him is that we took him to a Liberty ship that a group of historians had renovated, and so it was in primo condition the way it had been in World War II. And if he hadn't had bad arthritic knees at the time, we could have taken him throughout the ship, but he just got a kick touring that ship. So
That's so
yeah.
cool. What was his name?
His name was Darwin Arthur Wilson.
What a fun name.
Yeah.
What about your mom? What was her name?
Oh, jeez. It's interesting. Her name is Juanita Mercedes Hannon Wilson.
What did
Her father was, I guess, a Spanish-Irish person.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can just hear my grandmother saying, Juanita Mercedes, you get in this house right now.
What did people call her?
My dad nicknamed her Phoebe. So she was called Phoebe.
Okay.
And I know why. Because Phoebe birds can't sing. And my mother cannot hold a tune.
And did she try to sing?
Yeah,
she
she
liked
did.
to sing.
No, not that much, because we'd all razz her.
I love
My
the name
mother,
Phoebe.
though, was Irish, and she had the red hair to be.
She was?
Yeah.
I love that. I went to Ireland last year and sort of just fell in love with it and want to go back as soon as possible.
Yeah, I went to my first European trip. Kevin's in my first European trip. He took me right after Desert Storm when I got home. We went to London, Edinburgh, and Dublin. And it was great, but the weather was awful, and we hated Europe because we weren't seasoned travelers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we took a beautiful train ride from London to Edinburgh. And my husband's mother was Dorothea Bill, and her family lineage is Alexander Graham Bill. And so we went and found his house in Edinburgh.
Wow, that's
And
so cool.
no wonder my husband's into telephones and communications and everything like that. But another thing that happened while we were in Edinburgh was the International Congress on Pain. And so little old me walked up to the guys in charge, and said, hey, I'm a physical therapist from the United States. I'd like to attend this. He said, well, yeah, you can. Just stand in line before each meeting, and if there's a seat, you can come in.
Did you do it?
Yeah. It was great. I love listening, to the Scottish and the foreign languages, although sometimes I had a little difficulty understanding them, but it was awesome.
So, are you an only child, or did you have siblings?
No, I have a brother.
Okay.
And
are you the oldest?
no, I'm the middle. I have a sister. I had a sister. My brother is a year older than I. Well, I think it's like 14 months. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're both boomers, born in the 40s. He's a very creative individual.
Mm-hmm.
He could be an artist, and I wish somebody would discover him because he does beautiful work. But it's weird. It's like Berkeley stuff.
Well, so in your notes that you gave me, you mentioned that when you were a little girl, Little League came to Berkeley, but there was a reason that you couldn't participate.
'Cause I was a girl.
Right. So can you talk a little bit about that experience?
First of all, my brother and I used to go down to the playground, and on Saturdays you could play baseball. And there was a game called two-a-side where you had a shortstop and an outfielder. And then the other team had a batter and their own pitcher. And it certainly developed your skills at being able to field and hit. And we'd play that game for hours. If my parents couldn't find us around the neighborhood, they knew to go down to the school, which was a quarter of a mile away, and look for us there. I was as good, if not better, than many of the boys that were playing Little League. And it just irked me that I couldn't play.
How old were you think, when that happened?
Oh, I was 10.
Okay.
Because I think my brother was either 10 or 11 when Little League came to town.
Did he get to play?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you would go watch him play?
Yeah. The other thing we did was the Pacific Coast League semi-pro ball was out there. And it was a cheap way to entertain your kids because I think a ticket cost $0.25. And a hot dog was a nickel or something like that. I could be wrong, way off. But yeah, it was less than $1. Mm-hmm. And we saw some mighty fine ball players
who were coming through, huh?
Who were coming through on the teams, the Oakland Oaks and the San Francisco Seals. Yeah.
So when you would go watch your brother play, he's older or younger? Your brother,
older, a year older.
You're the middle. That's right.
Yeah.
Were there other little girls in the community you think that would have wanted to play as well?
Probably.
That you knew of?
Yeah, because we were fortunate in California in that they had physical education every day from junior high through high school. And we also had a pretty good competitive program between classes, but also there was AAU. And I competed in AAU track. And there was always a girl who was just a little bit better than me. And she would beat me in most everything, but I beat her in the softball throw for distance. And I held the city record for years.
All right, so tell me about where you went to high school.
I went to Berkeley High, the only high school in the city. And again, we had an excellent physical education program. And there were a lot of electives. The only class you had to take was swimming. You had to be able to swim by the time you graduated from high school.
Well, I did a little bit of research, and it said that today there are approximately 3,200 students there now.
Okay.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah, because I worked on the school newspaper when I was a senior, the Berkeley High Daily Jacket. And I know we had a circulation of 4,500, but that was only because of the fact that people, once they graduated, wanted to stay in tune, and so they were mailed to them. But also, at that time, there was a satellite campus that had the 9th graders.
What was the mascot?
A yellow jacket.
A yellow jacket. There's a high school here in Mississippi, Starkville High. They're the Yellow Jackets. That's where I did my student teaching.
Oh, really?
I had not really heard of very many Yellow Jackets floating around.
I remember student teaching, yeah.
It was an experience for sure.
For sure.
Okay, so I looked on the Berkeley High School website today, and I counted that at the moment there are 17 sports open to girls today. Some of that being co-ed, but girls are included. How does that compare to your experience when you were there? Like, how many sports do you think were open to girls when you were there?
I don't know. I competed in 3: volleyball, basketball, and softball.
Okay.
And
so
badminton.
They had that there when you were.
Okay. I gave up volleyball because I broke my teacher's thumb.
Oh, no.
Yes. She tried to block a spike, and she was over the net. So it's
What was your position in volleyball?
You didn't have position. She just rotated.
I thought there
through.
were like.
I know there were, but Hey, this is the 60s. Come on.
You, of all people, I assumed had some sort of specific position that you wanted to play. Okay, so y'all just kind of... Did y'all compete with other schools, or it was just something you would play on campus?
We did on a limited basis
Okay.
because, there was no money to transport a team
So
and
were
stuff.
there competitive sports for girls then, or was it mostly things you just did on campus that you participated in?
We had to compete against other schools.
Yeah.
Because, you get tired of competing against other grades after a while, and you run out of a pool.
So it was somewhat organized, right?
Yeah,
that
somewhat
they would
organized.
organize a schedule for you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, the Berkeley High was known for its modern dance program.
Okay.
It was pretty well known throughout the area and had some pretty talented instructors.
Well, in that Berkeley, what did you say the name of the newspaper was? Berkeley...
Oh, the Daily Jacket?
The Daily Jacket. Yeah. I found it on their website, and they have like a really awesome online publication
I
that
have
I
some
looked
of my
at.
old columns.
Well, I forgot. I needed to go back and search for you, Holly.
It's called Sports Shorts.
Okay. So 1965 was your freshman year of college, right?
Yeah, I was the last mid-year class, Berkeley High. So we graduated on a Friday, and we started college on a Monday.
Okay. So that Monday, where did you start college?
Chico State in Chico, California.
Okay.
It's farm country.
What's the mascot at Chico State?
Wildcats.
How did you land at Chico State?
Actually, it was my PE instructor at junior high.
Okay.
She was really pretty cool, and she would tell us stories about being up at Chico.
Because it's not near, it's a couple hours away, right?
It's 3 hours up the road, in the countryside.
So were you a city dweller?
Yep.
And then you moved to the country?
Yep.
Was that a big transition?
No, because they were well known for their sports.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was not sure whether I wanted to be a physical education major or a biology major.
Mm-hmm.
And I had looked into the forestry program up at Humboldt, which is even farther north. It's up in the California Redwoods, just below the border with Oregon. But forestry was not open to women at the time.
Interesting.
And I wasn't interested really in preserving the forest except for the wildlife that lived there.
Mm-hmm. Well, so in your Cliff Notes that you gave me, you told a story about how you discovered the field of athletic training your freshman year. Can you kind of share about that?
Well, I'm a book person, although I don't always have time to read them all.
Yeah.
But I like to go look at books. And prior to that discovery, I think I injured my knee playing basketball.
Mm-hmm.
This was like 2 weeks into my college career.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody to take care of it. But anyway, I found this book in the bookstore that said Introduction to Athletic Training. And I thought, what the heck is athletic training? So I looked through it, and I thought, aha, this would put together my interest in sports and my interest in science, and might be the answer to what I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, man, I'm going to take this class as soon as I can. But there was that little footnote, not open to women. And so I had to wait 2.5 years before it became open to women. And I think the only reason it was not open to women at the time was that if you know the geography of the typical gymnasium, the athletic training room is between the gymnasium and the locker room of the men.
Mm-hmm.
And most athletic training classes are taught in the training room. So how do you get an interested female into the training room?
Right.
Actually, I don't even think there's an entrance off the training room into the gymnasium, because they could have easily come in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the one at Indiana State didn't, because they cut me a door from a hallway so I could avoid having to continue to go through the men's locker room to get to class. Yes. That's not in the Cliff Notes, is it?
So what did you do? Just like kind of...
I said, hey, guys, I'm coming in. Close your eyes.
Did you have to walk through when there would be men in there changing? Mm-hmm. And they would just kind of like,
oh, yeah,
hey,
okay.
Holly.
Yeah, just about.
Like,
anatomy lessons you didn't want.
That's crazy,
But that was
Holly.
Indiana State, yeah.
Wow.
later on. But yeah, it was pretty interesting because there was a new trainer there when I started my second semester of my junior year, which was a September because I'm mid-year. Okay, I'm off. And he was from Louisiana. By way of Indiana State, he came to Chico, which must have been a culture shock to him.
What was his name?
Henry Stroud. And he opened the classroom, or the class to women, class. He just moved it. And so I became a shadow very quickly. And, you know, if he wasn't in class, I was probably on his heels asking questions or sitting in his office stealing his books and magazines and all that. Like 2 weeks into the class, he said, I want you to come in on Sunday so that you can cover this soccer game. Help me cover this soccer game. It was an intramural game or something, club sport maybe, but he had to cover it. And I learned that the night before...
What do you mean by cover it?
Provide sports injury care. Okay, be on the sidelines.
Right.
Ready. Okay. The night before, Chico State had played Davis, University of California at Davis in football. And at that time, there were only 4 athletic trainers in the conference, and one of them was at Chico. Davis didn't have one. One of the players suffered a heart attack on the field, and Hank saved him.
Wow.
No sooner was that ambulance going out of the stadium than a referee suffered a heart attack. And Hank saved him. I don't know what the order was, football, the referee first.
Still.
He saved both of them. And I certainly would have been worn out emotionally the next day if I had to come and watch another sport. But here I was, a rookie. I knew nothing other than how to put on a Band-Aid. And I was on the sidelines. He said, by the way, I'm just going to be over here. You're in charge. And I said, okay. And he said, but I'll be here if you need me. Thank goodness there was only an abrasion in that whole game.
Wow.
So it was, welcome to the profession under fire.
Trial by fire, right?
Yeah,
you were thrown to the wolves, right? Or thrown to the wildcats,
right?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway.
Were there any other contemporaries as far as women who were with you during that time? Okay.
That were interested? I can't remember the makeup of the class at the time, whether there were other women. But he said, okay, if you really want to do this, then I want you to cover the women's teams. Mm-hmm. Well, that didn't go over very big because he didn't talk to the coaches on the women's side of the house. And the athletes wanted me there, but...
Were the coaches mostly men?
No, they were women.
Oh,
but,
okay.
I think it was a situation, it was something they had never experienced before. Mm-hmm. There were no athletic trainers in their upbringing as coaches and physical education instructors, and they never had the class because it wasn't open to women.
Right.
And so why do we need you? But the athletes wanted me. And so eventually it came to a meeting of the minds, and the women agreed that, yeah, you could be here on the sidelines. We'll let you.
Because you were probably closer in age to the athletes.
Yeah. And so if I'm getting my schools correct,
okay.
I think it came down to the fact that, well, if there's an injury on the field, you can't go out and see it until you tell us what you're going to do, which is kind of like, okay, I can really tell what's happened to that athlete out there from the sidelines.
Right.
So, but they had to give me permission to go on the field.
The coaches did?
Yes. And then we'll give you a shower room, and you can use that to tape on, because I was taping off the benches, and you know the height of the benches. And if you want to travel with the teams away, you have to find your own way there. Wow. Now, I don't drive. I never have. Mm-hmm. Never will. And I was pretty good at offering bribes to people. Hey, do you want to go see the field hockey team play? Give me a ride and I'll buy you dinner. Something like that. Yeah.
So you just don't drive? I mean, really?
No, I don't have the eyesight.
Ah,
and then you'll say, how'd you get in the Navy? That's another story.
My wheels are turning now. I just assumed maybe it had to do with you growing up in an urban area.
No.
Okay. Gotcha. So you've worn glasses your whole life?
Hmm?
Have you worn glasses your whole life?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Since I was 6 months old. And my mom told me stories. She said, you used to go out in the garden and take off your glasses and throw them in the bushes and say, guess where they are, Mom?
Thanks a lot. Huh?
And they were really cute. You know, they were like the Ben Franklin glasses, you know, but they were like Coke bottle thick.
Yeah.
And wire rims. These are nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my glasses that I used to wear were bulletproof, probably. I mean, these are bulletproof now, but they were thick enough to be bulletproof.
Oh, my gosh.
Because they were 16 diopters. You know what that is? Coke bottle bottoms. And I had cataract surgery and the prescription's in my lens.
Wow.
So I do better now almost without glasses. These are nothing.
That's so cool. So let's get back on track. So this Mr. Hank Stroud, which is so interesting to me, my college roommate, her last name was Stroud. So there's some Strouds in Mississippi, maybe by way of Louisiana, huh?
Tell you another story.
Mm-hmm.
We could not understand a word he said for the first 2 weeks of class. What the heck did he say? Thank goodness we had a textbook.
His accent was so strong?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what area of Louisiana? Because there's different accents, you know, from different areas.
Yeah, well, it was really...
So do you think meeting him and him taking you in he was your mentor, right?
Yes.
Did that change the trajectory of your career, having him step into the picture?
I mean, as I said, everything seemed to fall in place. I mean, once I got in that class, he decided that I was worth, you know, taking a chance on. He was talking to the folks at Indiana State in Terre Haute, which happened to be one of the few athletic training curriculums in the country at the time.
Yeah.
And one of the few that was open to women. And since he had been there, he was talking it up that, hey, you got to latch on to this woman and get her in the program.
Okay.
And of course, my parents thought I was crazy because in California at the time you got free tuition.
Okay.
And here I was, if I transferred to Indiana State, I would be throwing away free tuition as a second semester senior, almost ready to graduate. Well, yeah. And having to pay $37.50 an hour out of state, which is nothing in comparison to nowadays. But also, I would be transferring in as a second semester senior with 110 units. What would I be able to salvage? And it was a long way away. I had never been past Nevada. And what else?
So that was one of my questions. Why did you transfer from Chico to Indiana State? But it was because you wanted to enroll in that program.
Yeah, the athletic training specialization. It was a minor.
Okay.
And it was one of the few in the country.
Because what were you technically majoring in at the time at Chico? Biology?
It might have been biology. It might have been physical education. But I had...
Just a general...
Yeah. I had come to the conclusion at that time that I didn't want to be a PE teacher. If I wanted to be anything, I wanted to be a coach, and I wanted to coach softball, but that wasn't going to happen for sure. I had a fantastic coach from the East Coast, Ray Besto Sparkettes.
Okay.
She played every position except for my two, of course.
Was it a fast pitch or slow pitch?
Fast pitch. I was a fast pitcher and a first baseman.
Okay. You were a pitcher?
Yeah.
That's so cool. I was a catcher.
Oh, okay. Give me a signal.
Yeah.
I
could do it, Holly.
Yeah, my whole philosophy was let them hit. I have 8 people back there that can help me. And, you know, I had such control that...
Did you listen to the catcher when she told you what to throw?
Sometimes. When I wasn't pitching, I was playing first. I loved first base. Small and fast. That counts for everything.
You seem like more of a shortstop, third baseman, or second baseman.
I can't play second at all. That's a wild throw for me to first.
I've never even
I can
tried
play
to.
short. My brother played short. And I can't play third. It's too fast.
All right. So let me see. What was my next question, Holly? So now we are...
Oh, you were going to Hank Stroud.
Okay, yeah. Well, I just was...
Oh, I have to tell you one more part of that story. Just about the time that I was trying to decide whether to transfer, the head of the women's physical education department at Indiana State sprained her ankle. Her neighbor was the head trainer at Indiana State, and he took care of her ankle. And she was so amazed at how fast she got better without voodoo medicine or anything that she wanted an athletic trainer. She was ahead of her time. She was amazing. I mean, she took what was known as a talented student scholarship,
Mm-hmm.
which was for maybe somebody in music, somebody in art. And she said, well, athletes are talented. I want some of these. I'm going to give them out to my athletes. I was ticked at her, though. She never gave me one.
Okay, so as far as the timeline goes, we are about 1969, maybe 1970.
68 is when I transferred.
Okay, 68.
And I finished in a year and a half, academic year and a summer, I finished my requirements for the specialization, the major, a gazillion general ed requirements that I had to redo, and student taught, and got my bachelor's.
Okay.
And then the high school where I student taught wanted to hire me. I said, no, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a graduate assistantship so I could continue on with the athletic training program
Mm-hmm.
I had started for
Mm-hmm.
the 10 women's athletic teams at Indiana State.
Okay. So that puts us right around
69.
Okay, so I wanted to put this in here. Did the moon landing have any sort of impact on you?
I remember the moon landing. It was summer.
Where were you? What were you doing?
I
Tell
was
me about it.
teaching, student teaching at high school.
Did you watch it?
Yeah. Everybody went to the auditorium and watched it.
So it was a big
Yeah.
Big
and
deal.
of course, Armstrong,
Right.
Purdue.
Oh, I don't think I realized he was from Purdue.
I think he was from Purdue, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, big time, Indiana.
Okay, so 1970.
I can tell you where I was when Kennedy got shot, too.
Okay, tell me
Walking
about that.
from the gym building at Berkeley High School back into
Because that
the
was
main campus.
63.
63? Was it?
Okay,
Yeah.
I was going to say 65, but 63.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
you were kind of like my 9/11 moment. I was in
In
high
fact,
school.
I saw Kennedy.
Really?
He came to UC Berkeley and spoke at some big, it may have been commencement or just some big anniversary. And actually, they said, let's see, we got tickets. Some of the students at Berkeley High, if they wanted tickets, could go, if they could get tickets. And we were there, and they said, don't leave the Coliseum, because it was at the football Coliseum. Who listens? Who listens? So I ran around the stadium and actually knocked the hat off of a guy, which I assume was a Secret Service man. And he glared at me, and I glared back at him. And I was probably 10 feet from Kennedy when he left.
Okay, so the moon landing was in 1969, and then 1970 is when you graduated, we think, maybe. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I
Okay.
got my master's in 1970.
Okay, so this was my question. You had gotten your certification into the National Athletic Trainers Association.
Yeah, well, I was one of 5 women who
One of-
were grandfathered.
Okay.
I think it should be grandmothered. But
Grandmother. Well, so at that point in 1970, there was still no Title IX.
No.
So,
there was a scattering, very small, like maybe 5 of us around the United States who had entered the field. In fact, when I applied for membership in the National Athletic Trainers Association in 1968 as a result of Hank saying, hey, you should do this, the certificate came back, Mr. Holly Wilson.
okay, so what's
69 to 70 was working on my master's, and then they had a new program at Indiana State. It was a grant that Indiana State was a big center for Special Olympics and working with physically and mentally challenged students. And so they had a grant to study the various adapted physical education programs around the state and whatever the various schools were doing for those challenged students. And so we went, there were 3 of us, 3 grad assistants, 1 guy and 2 of us women, and the 2 women were physical education majors and the guy was a special ed major.
Yeah.
And so during that year we traveled, we worked with challenged students at the lab school, and we did a lot with Special Olympics because the head honcho for Special Olympics was situated at Indiana State at the time, and so we were doing the state games.
I know that was probably an inspiring
Oh yeah.
experience, huh?
And then I was there as an athletic trainer.
Well, I forgot to ask this question about Indiana State. What's our mascot there? What were you at Indiana
Sycamores.
State? The Sycamores.
Yeah.
Okay. You've been a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
So far, you've been you've been a
Yellow
yellow
jacket,
jacket,
a
a
wildcat,
wildcat,
Sycamore.
and a sycamore. We're getting to the other places, I know.
After we did all this Special Olympics thing, the problem is there was nothing they could do for me anymore. I had 3 graduate assistantships in a row. Well, no, 2 in a row then at Indiana State. So I did what every other woman had done in the department. I went to Iowa. I wouldn't have known where Iowa was, but many of the women who I had had classes with, who I admired, and I actually played for a few of them, had gone to Iowa and gotten their
Why Iowa?
Had gotten their masters or PhDs there. M. Gladys Scott was well known throughout the Midwest, well, probably throughout the United States, for her mentorship of women in physical education. Maybe not athletics so much, but she was, one of the people that was revered in the field of physical education. And she wrote a couple books, too.
And she was at Iowa State.
Yeah, Iowa.
Iowa.
Yeah, University of Iowa. So I put in my application and was accepted, but it was a graduate assistantship in physical education. So I was teaching physical education classes. But there were some ragtag athletic teams there. This was before Title IX, 71, 72.
Right.
And so I volunteered to help them as I had free time. And I met the men's athletic trainer, and he tossed me a set of keys to his training room in the field house, which is an old historic building, field house. And he said, use it whenever you want, but you can't use it when I'm working with the basketball team. And you can use my supplies, too, because obviously I have no money. I'm a grad assistant. I'm living off of whatever pennies I get. And so, we had I referred to it as an underground athletic training program. It wasn't much, but I was there at games when I could be. And I remember doing basketball. I don't remember field hockey, but I might have been at field hockey, but I wasn't at softball because it was not.
So it's not like you were getting pushback from the men's teams necessarily.
No. I never had any pushback from the men. In fact, I think they welcomed me as a woman because I could get those little athletes off their back, the ones that were taking up their time or not necessarily bothering them, but wanting to be taken care of as athletes. If you go way back to when I was a freshman at Chico and I hurt my knee playing basketball, it took 6 months to get that diagnosed. And then I had surgery for a torn meniscus 2 weeks before I was to start my second semester up at Chico, which wasn't good timing, but I was working at a camp during the summer, a nature studies camp.
That sounds lovely.
So anyway, that year was the year that Title IX.
Okay, that's
71, 72. So in June of 72, I was set to continue on at Iowa and continue work on my PhD. But I got a phone call out of the blue from Indiana State. And somewhere they found some money to hire me back. But the problem was I was at a training camp for the Student World Games. And I said to them, hey, they want me. It's a job. It's my first job. I got to go. And they let me go. But so I tootled back to Indiana State and took a job as an acting instructor and assistant or athletic trainer for women. Don't ever take a position as an acting instructor. I was teaching an overload, everything that nobody wanted. Sorry, Dr. St. John, but
well, let me back up for a second. What mascot? What were you at Iowa?
A hawkeye.
A hawkeye. Okay. So with Title IX, 1972, was that a significant moment, or what?
I don't know whether Title IX
for you. I mean, did it really mean anything necessarily?
No.
Was there more funding, or did you see a change?
There was supposed to be, but was there? And did this money miraculously appear?
Did it trickle down
in 72 because?
So maybe it was a formality, but it took time for it to actually.
It took time. I definitely saw a change because I was at Indiana State for 2 years, 72 through 74. And unfortunately, at the time, enrollment was going down, and so they were releasing people because they just didn't have the enrollment to justify the programs. And they had just got rid of the swimming coach.
For the girls' team or?
The girls' team. And she wasn't the latest hire, I was. So I knew I was next on the chopping block. And so I started looking around. Besides, I decided you can't really go back to where you went to school and teach, because you're still kind of not up here where you should be as a instructor, as far as respect. You're still down here kind of in the student level. So I started looking around, and actually I got actually there were 2 phone calls that came in at about the same time. Minnesota was interested in me, and Iowa was interested in me. But I didn't know Iowa had money. I knew Minnesota did because they had talked to me. And I said, well, you need to talk. If you want references, talk to Dr. Scott at Iowa. And I heard the story, the backstory on this, and then I just had to laugh because that M. Gladys Scott is a wily one. She got the call from Minnesota, and they said, yeah, we're interested in hiring Holly Wilson as our athletic trainer. And M. Gladys Scott said, oh, I'm going to have to pull her record and look at it. And she said, I'll call you back. Okay? And so M. Gladys Scott tells her secretary, get on the phone to Holly. I want to offer her a job. She offered me a job, and of course, yeah, I'll take it. And so then, like 15 minutes after I accepted the position at Iowa, Minnesota called. So, yeah. Because, once again, this was now 74, and there still weren't a lot of women. I think, as I recall, the membership in the National Athletic Trainers Association at the time, they had just gone over 100 women as members. Yeah, I beat feet for Iowa. And then...
so back to the Hawkeyes, right?
Yeah, back to the Hawkeyes. I was the only woman on the staff. I was in charge of the women's program, developing their program now, because Title IX was 2 years in.
Okay, so was that a position created for you? Like it was a new position? Or had
it was a brand new position.
You were the first one to take...
I was the first woman trainer at Iowa and the first woman trainer at Indiana State. And the first woman trainer at Chico State.
Say that in the microphone. You were the first one.
First at Indiana State, first at Iowa, and first at Chico. But, yeah, I was in charge of, I think there were 10 teams at Iowa, but I can't remember.
Can I backtrack a second back to 1972? I read that you wrote a column for the National Athletic Trainers Association.
Starting in 73.
73.
I was on the journal committee of the NATA, the first woman, I think, appointee to any committee.
What was the name of your column?
Not for men only.
No, not for men only.
Yeah. And it had the women's symbol, with the logo of the NATA in it. I didn't write all the columns. I coerced other people. Like there were a lot of prominent women on the staff at Iowa, so I got them to write a few columns for me.
That's so fun.
But by 76, I was just too busy. Also, as I was running out the door of Indiana State, out of the office, there was a phone call for me, which I just happened to be there, right place, right time. And I think it was the president of the National Association for Girls and Women in Sport, which was the same as the NCAA type thing. It was the governing body for high school and collegiate sports for women at the time. But anyway, she said, hey, we got this interest group that we want you to chair. We have enough people, enough women and girls expressing interest among our membership in athletic training. We need to know more about it, how we can help them become more knowledgeable and make knowledgeable decisions about whether or not they want to enter the profession. I said, well, I can't make a decision right now. I'm between jobs.
Right.
I have to talk to my new boss. And so luckily, they gave me permission. And for 2 years, it was just an interest group, but it was growing. It was like...
So you were managing your full-time job with Iowa, plus this was...
Yeah.
Was this a paid position, or you were a volunteer?
Volunteer. And it was, you go to Washington, D.C. once or twice a year and sit on the governing board and make decisions. But otherwise, it's all your thing with your committee. So, yeah, luckily I got to take it. And for the next 4 years, the first two of which, 74 to 6, I was a non-voting member on the board. And then 76 to 78, I was on the board voting. And I named my interest group the Athletic Training Council. And unfortunately, the National Athletic Trainers Association at the time thought, hey, maybe she's trying to be a renegade and separate out the women. And I wasn't at all. I was just trying to make sports safer for women and the position or profession of athletic training more visible to them.
So this was a question that I'd kind of come up with, and you're leading into it. Your work obviously increasingly shifted towards safety in girls and women's sports. So at the time, what were the concerns?
Lots of them.
Okay,
in field hockey, nobody wore mouth guards.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about...
And one of the ways you can get a concussion is to be hit in the jaw without that mouth guard in, because then the force goes up and rattles your brain. And so, mouth guards was one. Helmets was another.
What sports were not wearing helmets?
Any of them. I don't remember in softball. Were we wearing helmets? I can't remember.
I've always worn it.
That was 50 years ago. But
so helmets were, that was something that needed to be a consistent implementation, right? Okay.
The only player I remember who had any protective equipment was a catcher in softball and the goalie in field hockey. Okay. But,
I've never thought of a mouth guard providing that sort of safety.
Protect your teeth.
Right. I've always just thought of it more of like, let's protect our mouth and our teeth, but not to help prevent concussions.
Yeah. But also physical exams. There were no standardized forms. So we developed a medical history form that was no joke.
What was the significance of creating a specific form?
Because then it would be standardized throughout the whole United States.
Because there was nothing.
There was nothing. Well, there was, but they were a joke. They didn't even go into the background.
Was it like a men's form and they would just use it for a girl?
Yeah, it might have been, but I wasn't real pleased with the men's forms either. Yeah. And then the medical history and the medical exam to gear the physician beyond, your lungs sound fine, your heart sounds fine, you can see the chart on the wall type of thing, So we did that. Those were the two main things. Because remember, there's only like 5 of us or maybe 7 of us working on all this, and we all had full-time jobs.
Right.
And if you know anything about athletic training, it's not a 40-hour week.
Right. I don't know anything about it, but I'm learning. Yeah.
Yeah. You have your regular job from 9 to 5.
But then you're on the field.
Practice. And then you may have a game, and that game may be away.
Right.
Yeah. And so it was not a 40-hour week.
So we just talked about the mouth guard issue, and you guys wrote a position statement, on that. Was there a debate surrounding that, or just no one had really ever brought it forward?
Nobody ever brought it forward. And the other thing is, NAGWS, National Association for Girls and Women, put out the rule manuals for each sport. Okay, it was a guidebook, but in that guidebook, along with the rules, were articles. Articles maybe for referees or articles for a coach or something. And so I said, hey, this is a great way for us to get some information dispersed to coaches and to participants. And so we would every now and then slip in a chapter on some, like how to prevent blisters, or how to use ice and heat, things like that. They also had their own publishing group, so eventually we wrote a book called Tips on Training, where there were chapters on different aspects of athletic training, and so it was a standalone book. And then going back to Indiana State, I developed a class on women in athletic training. or women, Fundamentals of Athletic Training for Women. I wrote the workbook for the class, and it was later published by NAGWS. And getting to Iowa, you had to do a dissertation.
Right. I wanted to know about that dissertation.
So that dissertation was not research, because way back at Indiana State, as part of my exercise physiology class, we were assigned a topic for the class, and mine was effective warm-up on speed. And the day of that testing, it had snowed the night before. Try that. Try to encourage people to run hard when it was, 50 below. No, it wasn't 50 below, but all the research I did after that involved animals.
So what was your topic?
So at Iowa, you could do almost anything you wanted. One of my colleagues at Indiana State wrote poetry and had an artist illustrate them. It was really a cool book, because it was called Women in Motion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was cool. But I decided I'm going to write a book.
Yeah.
So at first I was going to write a book on women and athletic training, But then I thought, nah, I don't want to do that. I could have a doctor say, no, this is wrong. Although I did write a few textbook chapters for a very good friend of mine who was a physician. So I wrote a book. It was one of the first of its kind. It was called Instructional Manual, Care and Prevention of Athletic Injuries for Non-School Sports Coaches, meaning Little League and Pop Warner football. Because at the time, Little League and Pop Warner football were big time. And those coaches might be a dad who had no first aid experience other than taking care of a scrape of his own kid, but here he is on the sideline and responsible for all those players. So what does he do? So it took athletic training techniques down to the very basics in understanding and decision making.
Right.
What you needed to do to protect the health of this participant should he get injured. But it was published by a company called Human Kinetics, and you had to have a publisher before they'd approve your petition to write a book. And
do you have a copy of it still?
No. I don't think I might have I don't think so.
You should.
I'm getting rid of things.
You should have an autographed copy.
No. But I found a copy in London, England, in a bookstore, and I said, "You want this autographed?" And they looked at me like I was crazy.
You should have bought it, Holly. You need that on your bookshelf.
No, I don't.
Okay, so 1980, I have that your time ended at Iowa.
Yep.
What happened next?
I left Iowa because my parents were older,
Uh-huh.
and I had told them, I'm only going to be gone a year. And, I felt I should get home.
Yeah.
And I was getting kind of tired of my job because it was not an equal, maybe I shouldn't say this.
You can say
an
what
equal,
you want.
cutting of the responsibilities. And the last season I was there, the head trainer decided, maybe you should learn something about football. My response would have been, maybe you should learn something about women's sports. Yeah, because he had no clue. Like, we'd go away on a weekend and play 5 games, and you had to have everything you thought you might need with you on the road. We got caught in a blizzard for 2.5 days with a team.
Sounds horrible.
He's never had that.
Yeah.
So he assigned me to football, but I wasn't doing anything. He assigned me to be the host for the team that was visiting. So I was on the visitor sideline doing nothing. I mean, I'd come in early to tape our team, and then I'd get to go to the opposite side of the field. In fact,
did you attend to the visiting team? Or?
No, only if they had an injury that would require them to go to the hospital. I was there to make arrangements.
Okay.
But I was on the sideline, and Iowa wasn't very good when I was there. I mean, we were the doormat almost of the Big Ten. Only Northwestern was worse. But I was on the sidelines for Ohio State University. Ever hear the name of Woody Hayes? I hope so.
No.
Well, Woody Hayes tried to kick me off the sidelines. He did not want a woman there.
Was he the coach?
Yes. But he was like,
I will Google him immediately, but yeah.
Michigan and Ohio State were 1 and 2 in the Big Ten for years. He couldn't touch me if I went over and stood on the 29, because he only has, between 30 and 30 yard lines. That's his kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And so he couldn't kick me off. So I just stood there and watched him. And he got really mad at his offensive team because we held him on the sideline. Not the sideline, the goal line. And it was already 40-3. What did he want? But the big problem for the women on the sideline was we couldn't go into the locker rooms. And, it might be sleeting out there.
So really there was no, it was kind of silly to have you out there.
We had to sneak into the locker rooms during the game if we had to make a pit stop. Yeah. It's only so long you can cross your legs. And we never got food. We were out there for 6 hours, it seemed like. And it could be minus 40 and freezing our butts off.
Yeah.
But I've also been initiated in the blizzards of Iowa when we played field hockey games, and I was the only one who wasn't moving on the sidelines.
Okay, so...
Yeah, it's not Mississippi weather.
I can tell you about, sports in the heat, but not in the cold.
Yeah, I think I'd rather have the cold than the heat, though.
I don't know.
Heat stress and stroke.
Yeah, that's true. I was the assistant when I taught high school for a brief time, and they recruited me to be... Someone told them that I played soccer in high school, and which was true, only for about 2 years. And they were in need of an assistant soccer coach for the girls' team. Basically, they just needed a warm body on the sideline during the soccer games, and I agreed. But I've never experienced more miserable weather conditions, because soccer season in Mississippi is like January, February, and those are the. I'm such a pansy. I can't handle the cold weather, Holly. Like, give me the heat any day. Okay, so 1980, you said you headed back to Berkeley?
Yeah, I had to live with my parents. I had no job, no money.
Were they glad to see you come back?
I don't know.
Well, so I made a note that in 1980, after you moved back, I guess it was 81, you were able to travel to Barbados to teach.
The NAGWS had a program where they sent like 5 or 6 coaches plus an athletic trainer down there. And we spent maybe 2 weeks down there teaching. And I taught sports medicine. And that's another story.
Was it a volunteer project?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. But I was a fill-in. For some reason, the athletic trainer that was supposed to go couldn't. And I was in classes in San Francisco State University trying to get coursework for going to physical therapy school. But they called me up and said, hey, can you catch a plane in 2 days and meet us in New York to go to Barbados to teach? I said, yeah, I'll try. What do I need to bring? They said, well, if you're going to teach sports medicine, you got to bring supplies. And it was 4th of July weekend. Yeah. So actually, I stole tape from the Golden State Warriors. I got permission to steal tape from them.
Oh, you got permission?
Yeah, we got permission. And we were carrying 8 cases of tape. They're about that big.
Yeah.
But the airlines was going to charge me for each case of tape. So thank goodness my husband-to-be had some telephone wire in the back of his truck. And so we wired it all together as one package.
So smart.
And then I got a training kit. Yeah, the training kit and the tape. Yeah. And set off for Barbados.
Off you went. So that was 1981. I slipped in here. I feel like 1983, maybe you got married?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that a big to-do or just a simple thing? Or
my mother and father were going on the vacation of their lifetime to Greece.
Oh, wow.
And my mother collapsed on the flight. She was in the hospital. I don't know how long, but their vacation. And the question, I was in physical therapy school at the time. And the question was whether it was going to be me that flew to Italy to pick her up and bring her home, or Kevin, because he was a paramedic or had been a paramedic. And
Kevin
luckily,
is your fiance, or at the time was your fiance?
Well, not at the time, but
oh, okay.
friend, best friend, best buds. But Then it turned out that my mother apparently got it well enough that the doctor was going to let her fly home on a regular seat. And they came home. So I thought, I'm pretty sure my mother would want me to be married before she passes away, because we had no idea as to what the situation
was. It a heart attack she had? Or?
No, breathing. Breathing. She had COPD. But Kevin had been after me for years. And I said, no, I got things to do, places to go, people to see, And so, I said, yeah, I'll get married. So I picked a 3-day weekend in the school year. Flew home, got married, flew back.
He flew back with you? Or?
Nope.
So where'd y'all
He was working.
Where did y'all get married?
In Woodacre, California, in her parents' backyard. It's a beautiful forest area.
That sounds so wonderful.
Yeah.
Was the proposal a big to-do? Or?
No. I just called him up and said, yeah, I'll say yes.
Okay, so he had been asking?
Yeah.
And you had been saying, putting him off?
So, but we had been friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did he say when you called? Like, okay.
Hey, I said, that question you've been asking me? He said,
Giving you a hard time?
Yeah. So I came home before the wedding, which was July 3rd. Bought the wedding dress, picked out the invitations, got the caterer, did all that in the weekend, and went back to school.
And then when did y'all get married?
July 3rd.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, July 3rd.
So how many people?
And I didn't know at the time that I picked July 3rd. Was July 2nd was his parents' anniversary.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, how many people were at the wedding, you think?
100, because my husband had this guest list.
At a backyard wedding?
Yeah, we had to chauffeur all the guests from a parking lot in town because there was no room on the road. It was that small of a road.
That's a great story, Holly. Okay, so that was 1983, right?
Yeah.
And so 1984...
I graduated from PT school.
And guess what else?
The Olympics.
And I was born.
Oh, okay. Da-da-da-da.
I was born in December 1984.
Oh, well, the Olympics were well before then.
So you graduated from PT school in 1984. And then, I wanted you to tell me about your 1984 Olympics experience.
Well, I volunteered to take care of the Archers of the World because one of the archers was from Indiana State, and I knew her because my roommate from Indiana State for years was their coach.
Wow.
And so I was down getting my uniform, and I overheard a woman in the next change booth or something that she was very disappointed that she didn't get an athlete to host at her house. So I waited for her to come out, and I pounced. I said, would you take a coach? So she said, sure. And I said, okay, give me your name and number. And so I called up my ex-roommate, and I said, hey, you want to come to the Olympics and watch your archer?
Yeah.
And she did. I was riding a bicycle 7 miles to the venue every day from my aunt's apartment.
This was in Los Angeles?
Long Beach.
Long Beach, okay.
Long Beach, yeah.
So what goes into the athletic training of like an archery team? Like what were you having to do? Minimal?
Piece of cake. No. Actually, we were there. Nobody seems to realize that those athletes aren't just there for their competition. If their country wants to pay, they can come early and practice at the venue. But in archery, for example, you don't set the targets up for them in the same position they're going to be in the competitive field, because you don't want to give a team that can come early an advantage. So they're set in a different direction.
I never thought of that.
So 30 days and 30 nights, I rode that bicycle.
I bet you were in good shape by the time.
Yeah. But no, we were there. I can't remember what time I had to be there, but we were there. And then when the athletes left, we got to leave every day.
What was that experience like? Did you encounter lots of athletes from other parts of the world? Or?
Oh, yeah. But we didn't do much taking care of them. It was more the crowd we had to take care of them. I remember the Queen of Sweden or something was there in the stands during the competition, and she needed some sunscreen. Well, I brought her a tube, and I couldn't get close to her, of course. The bodyguards were there. and the tube was open. They said, no, has to be closed. I said, okay.
Like a fresh tube.
Okay. But it was amazing because, when you were, you weren't even born yet, so you wouldn't know what it looked like. But the colors were like your hat, and hot pink and golds and all these vibrant colors.
Yeah.
I was so glad we were in white and gray.
So I'm wearing a turquoise hat. So like
I
bright
didn't want to
colors.
be a fuchsia. It was like orange and fuchsia. Just a
Seems like it should have been red, white, and blue.
Yeah, no. These were all the volunteers, and each group had their own colors.
Oh,
yeah, so that
gotcha.
you could identify.
I understand.
But it was amazing to see the change in the venue from being, just basic stuff that they, the framework, let's say, for everything that was going to happen, and then to come back the opening day and see all the beautiful things they had done with flowers and banners and flags and everything. It was amazing. And, okay, don't arrest me, but I stole the sign. I stole the sign off our trailer that said, in French, whatever, Olympics sports medicine.
Do you still have it?
No, I actually gave it to the NATA.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, could I have it?
No. It was like, big.
They didn't realize it was, I guess once it's over, though,
Yeah,
they're just kind of swiped
because the last night after the competition was over, and they never showed the finals of Olympics. And it was the most exciting finish of probably any event in the whole Olympics in '84 because it came down to the last arrow. And the American took second over I think it was a Japanese fellow who took third, but we took first and second. And the men,
so
the
two
women,
Americans won?
In the
silver
men's, but the women's, no. But,
so did you get to see the medal ceremony?
oh yeah.
Was that,
Yeah,
was
it
that
was cool.
significant?
Yeah,
It seems so
it
cool.
was all,
Was
yeah.
it outdoors? All that
Yeah,
would have been
we were in
outdoors?
the park.
Yeah. So like even the medal ceremony was outdoors.
But they had a barbecue for everybody afterwards. And then they had not a raffle, but they picked numbers, and they were giving away the TV sets that were donated, the ATV that we use, everything. I got a tie. That's all I want.
So did you attend to the women's team and the men's team?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Any of them. Whatever they wanted.
So at
yeah,
that
there were
point-
3 of us.
Okay.
There was a head trainer and 2 assistants.
I guess I just assumed
And
you
we
were
didn't-
only caring for the women.
I don't think we had anything to do other than, sunburn and maybe a blister here or there.
All right. So 1984. Also, you decided to enlist in the U.S.
I had always wanted to join the Navy. No, I had always wanted to join the military.
Okay.
And they always turned me down because of my eyesight. I said, my glasses are da-da-da-da. And they said, nope, sorry, bye. And and they didn't know what an athletic trainer was.
So you had
they
tried
didn't care.
You had tried to join.
Yeah.
In the past.
Yeah. And so, armed with my physical therapy certificate, hot off the press, I went to all the services, and the only one that would take me was the Navy because I was 37, and their cutoff was 37. Okay.
Wow.
So I didn't pass the physical. Yeah, I told them about that. They said, you can go to your own eye doctor. And so I did. And he had been my buddy since I was 6 months old. Hey, he said, you want in the military? I said, yeah, I need 20/20. And he said, well, okay. So I'm a pretty good guesser. Over the years, you learn. And I got 20/30 plus and 20/20 minus. So that means I missed 2 on the 20/20, and I got 2 more from the 20/30 that counted. So he wrote it down as 20/20 minus. So there it was, 20/20. They didn't look at the minuses. And yep.
And they took it.
Yep. But I had to fight the Navy 4 times to stay in. 3 or 4 times. Right after I got in, a year later, they upped the age range for physical therapy officers in the military specialty corps. And so I took the physical And the guy says, how'd you ever get in the Navy? The eye doc. He says, if you get out, you'll never get back in. And I said, well, here's the story. He said, oh, okay. And so he said, okay. And my packet went in. Your physical goes to one side of the house, and your, all the background information goes to the other. And they said it was one of the best packets they've ever seen. And so a week later, I get a certified letter from the Department of the Navy saying, sorry, Charlie, you're out of here. We don't want you anymore. They were administratively separating me because I was not physically qualified to be in the United States Navy, although I had just proved that I could do my job without any complaints. So I fought them. Mm-hmm. And they were throwing out all these letters from, I had friends who wrote the truth mm-hmm. and did, very complicated and complete exams of eyes and knee, and wrote, she's good to go. Mm-hmm. Circular file. And so one smart chief said, let's take pictures. Let's take pictures. Pictures worth 1,000 words.
Pictures of what?
Me.
Okay.
Playing sports. That'll show your knees good and your eyes are good. So I have a friend who's an ABC cameraman. He brought his big professional camera, and I was working at a college, mm-hmm. Mills College, private women's college up in Oakland Hills as the athletic trainer at the time. And he came and we played basketball, we played softball, all indoors, thank goodness, because you're not going to get a bad hop in softball playing indoors. But the water outside was sitting there because we had had torrential rains mm-hmm. for weeks. And so we took the film canister. We also did racquetball. We took the film canister, and he edited it at ABC mm-hmm. one night early in the morning when nobody was there. And we went down to San Diego, Kevin and I, and we went to trial. And if they had not accepted that cassette tape as evidence, I would have been out of the Navy.
What year was this, you think, that this was
1985.
Oh, so not long after.
Yeah, 85, 86. Mm-hmm. And there were 3 or 4 of us there on trial that day. I was the only woman. The other guys were Marines, and they wanted out. I was the only one who wanted in, to stay in. And that might have helped my case. I don't know, but mm-hmm. I didn't get to go the commission route, but I stayed as an enlisted person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Had you wanted to?
I didn't care.
Oh, okay.
I didn't care. I wanted to do whatever I could because I felt I owed something to my country.
Right.
Yeah.
So that really was your motivation.
Yeah. And I guess it was romantic in a way. Yeah, so I got caught every time I had to take a physical, but thank goodness there was an ophthalmologist in our military mm-hmm. unit, and so he said, she's good. Yeah. Leave her alone. She can do her job.
Yeah, because you weren't. You were providing.
Don't give me a gun, though.
Physical therapy services. Yeah, right. It is kind of frustrating. I guess they had those blanket requirements.
Yeah. Here I was.
Really didn't impact you, right? You could do your job.
Yeah, no problem. Here was Dr. Green, and I was a corpsman, and everybody joked. During my days during Desert Storm, when I was working at the Naval Hospital in Bremerton, mm-hmm. they gave me a name tag. It said HM1, okay, Hospital Corpsman, first class, mm-hmm. Dr. Green. Yeah, it was pretty cool. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. I think I said in the Cliff Notes that I volunteered to help on a hospital ship that was...
Yeah, that's on my list now. Don't get ahead of yourself.
It was berthed down the road
yeah.
from where we lived. Uh-huh. And there's a cadre crew there that takes care of the main part of the ship, main parts like...
so what ship are you talking about, Holly?
The USNS Mercy.
Okay.
TAH-19.
Okay.
It was a...
What is that ship?
Cargo ship that was gutted and then converted into a state-of-the-art hospital. Mm-hmm. It was a hospital floating hospital.
Right.
It had 1,000 beds.
And you spent time on it?
I spent time when it was in port.
Uh-huh.
And because of that, I got asked to go on sea trials with them. And so I went 9 days up and down the coast of California just to test everything in the physical therapy department to determine if it was going to work when they were out to sea. I mean, interesting to fill whirlpools, when you're out to see if they slosh and the drains are in the right place. Yeah, things like that.
So who would that hospital ship be providing services to?
It went to the Gulf War, for example. Like, I started working on the ship sometime around 88 or 89.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember when. And it got activated for Desert Storm, Desert Shield in August of 90, was it? Yeah, and went to sea.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why I went to the Naval Hospital Bremerton in Washington to backfill for all the people that were taken out of Oaknall Naval Hospital in Oakland, Bremerton Naval Hospital. They activated all these reservists to fill in.
So Desert Storm was its first mission, I guess you would say.
Yeah, we were the first military medical unit activated since Vietnam. Yeah. So you got the phone call on a Friday. Sunday you were gone. Sunday afternoon.
For this?
Yeah, for that. No, for going to the naval hospitals to backfill. Okay. So you could report to work on Monday morning. And there would be no impact on the hospital.
Right.
Or little impact.
So it was a huge, the
it was
turnaround
huge.
was swift. Wow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like the hospital ship has 7 days to be ready to go once they're activated. And they'll go out to sea before those 7 days, if necessary, and be loaded up with supplies by air.
Wow.
Yeah.
En route.
En route.
So your involvement in Desert Storm, Desert Shield, was that you were backfill.
Yeah, at the hospitals.
For the hospitals, because those people had been sent on the USNS Mercy.
Right. Yeah, I went to the physical therapy department. Because the funny thing...
In D.C., right? You said Bremerton? No, is that in D.C.?
Bremerton. No, it's Washington State.
Washington State.
The funny part of this whole situation is the Navy's trying to kick me out because of my eyesight. Can't be an officer because of my eyesight. But when they found out I was a physical therapist, they'd credential me as a physical therapist, pay me as a corpsman, which, big difference.
Those are two very different things, right?
Yeah, and so I had to carry my credentialing packet all around with me whenever I reported to a naval hospital to prove that, hey, yeah, I'm good to go.
Because on paper you were a corpsman, and that didn't make sense, huh?
Yeah.
Because you should have been an officer.
Yeah. But also, what else? Oh, and I had to fight the Navy like 3 or 4 times throughout my career because somebody would look at the paper, my physical, and say, oh, this eyesight, not regulation. Kick her out. And here I was like 16 years in. What don't you understand, So look back.
Would it just be somebody new in that position?
Who knows? But the last time they got me, I was in 19 years and 9 months. 19 years and 9 months. And they were getting me for an ACL reconstruction that wasn't healing as fast as it should have, but I was 58. Come on, give me a break. So I said, I have 3 months before I can retire. They gave me the option of taking coursework to make up the points, the drill points that I would have had for those 3 months, and then I could retire. But I already had a gazillion extra points. I didn't need them, and I say...
That was it, huh?
Yeah, because they classified me as physical risk category 5, which is like, you're a walking time bomb. Get out of here. There's the door. After 19 years and 9 months. Yeah.
So when you retired, what did you retire as from the Navy?
A senior chief, which is an E8, and E9 is the highest. And I had tried many times to get that E9, but I probably threw away the chance of becoming an E9 because I decided that I was more valuable to the Navy as a health promotion coordinator, helping to teaching them how to prevent injuries than caring for injuries. During Desert Storm, it was found that there were more sports injuries off duty among the activated warriors in Desert Storm than there were battle injuries. And so I developed a program locally for the Pacific Northwest, Naval Hospital Bremerton, called Fit Tips, Targeting Injury Prevention Sensibly. And I had a great boss. We were like, where were you all my life, you know?
Yeah.
Think of what we could have accomplished together. She let me go with whatever I wanted to do and supported me.
Well, so I made a note from your Cliff Notes that you had put in a suggestion
Oh, yeah,
on
that
how to
one?
help. Holly, can you tell me how you helped the Navy improve their sit-up test?
They encourage people to make beneficial suggestions, and I had watched people do the physical fitness test, and it's the number of sit-ups against time.
Yeah.
And so your feet are held down, which isn't even a test of your abdominal strength, which is what the sit-up's supposed to do. And so people were sloppy, and it was, I thought, an accident waiting to happen. They could hurt their backs. So, I knew about the biomechanics of doing a sit-up. So I looked at all the research. And then I thought, well, they're not going to do anything if I don't give them a solution. So I looked at all the various testing of abdominal strength. And our friends up to the north, the Canadians, had a solution that was very simple. And so I wrote the paper. It turned out to be 40 pages. And we submitted it. And it came back months later. Reject. And I showed it to my commanding officer, who was a physician. He said, "What? I'm sure they didn't even read it. The title probably got him." And so we resubmitted it, and he wrote a cover letter. And that time I put that I had a PhD on it, but it didn't help.
Oh.
And I was a first class then, too, which gave me a little bit more, impetus to get her done. But
I love that.
all throughout my career I was trying to prevent things.
Yeah, I love that.
And the ironic thing about the Navy is I had been talking about functional testing throughout my entire time there. And they didn't know what an athletic trainer did. They have these military games, and I had volunteered myself to go help them.
Yeah.
And they said, "No, sorry." And I did take care of the U.S. Navy All-Star basketball team, but they wouldn't give me orders to go to the championships. But I was in Desert Storm, but it was soon to end, and I could have gone easily, but no. But functional testing is can you do this function correctly without impacting your body? And, those Marines lift weights and as heavy weights as they can. And I said, I bet you couldn't do this, And finally, after I retired from the Navy, they started doing functional testing. And now the Navy and the military is hiring athletic trainers. It's like they're eager to hire athletic trainers to take care of the Navy SEALs and at boot camp and all those places where there's a possibility of an injury, and those trainers know how to take care of it.
That's awesome then. Huh?
Yeah.
Well, so I have a note here that you also took a job in the midst of all of this with the Special Olympics. Did I have that right?
When my husband was a paramedic, his buddy, who was also a paramedic, took a job with the American Red Cross. And the American Red Cross and the Special Olympics kind of go together because I guess the American Red Cross helped the Special Olympics with their needs during competition. Well, my corpsman, in a drill weekend, you drill once a month, they were doing physicals. And physicals can get kind of boring, same thing, day after day. And so I went to the CO and said, hey, Special Olympics comes around here maybe 3 times a year. My corpsman could get more out of being on the field with those Special Olympians, taking care of their scrapes and stuff, than doing physical exams. What do you think? He said, go for it. So we showed up at the state games and the various competition, winter games, summer games, in uniform, spit shined and spiffy. And I think I might have had some U.S. Navy pencils or something to give out. And it was the best advertisement for the Navy. It was a win-win situation for the Special Olympics because they were always looking for medical help. And my corpsman really got a kick out of it. Those kids would come up and salute. We'd give them a pencil and stuff like that. And then we didn't have to do a lot, thank goodness. Every once in a while we did. But we got a reputation. So
those Special Olympics, is that an inspiring experience to be there?
that's like the Paralympics I told you about. I mean, I can relate a little because I haven't been able to drive, which is nothing in comparison to the problems those people face. But, people, I've been able to make it around the world everywhere I wanted to go. And without driving.
Right,
yeah. So, my poor husband here, though.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
He's my duty driver. Yeah,
it's a little bit different in Mississippi, right?
But I eventually became the Northern California medical director.
Yeah.
And
for Special Olympics,
For
right?
Special Olympics, and was able to get staffing for the games. They moved the games from San Jose and Berkeley down south, so it cut us out of the
So that
deal.
was like the state games for California.
And then they made it Northern California and Southern California, and then they changed the base to Southern California. So there's no way I can get a Navy team down there. But the corpsmen really enjoyed it, and it was good for them, too. Yeah. Not just because they can maybe practice a skill here or there, but it's just...
I think just that experience sounds amazing. Yeah. Tell me about so I have a note here in 1991. You spent some time at the Oakland Zoo.
Oh, yeah.
Did they have you in an exhibit there?
Yeah, right.
What'd you do in the zoo, Holly?
I told you, I'd protect the forest for the wildlife. Well, zoos are good if they're ecologically set up for the animal.
Right.
So actually, I did a couple things. I worked in the education department, and we went out to nursing homes, school classrooms with animals that couldn't be released but were friendly. And we'd tell kids about them and, and how this relates to your pets.
Right.
And how you should care for your animals.
Like, did you handle the animals?
Oh, yeah, we handed them around. We had a python and everything. Yes.
How cool.
We had a cockatoo, a python, a hedgehog, a chinchilla.
How long did you do that at the zoo?
A couple years. More than a couple years, because then I got into...
That's so fun. I love that.
I became a zookeeper for a while. But that was such hard work. I was eating those 3,000-calorie meals.
At the Oakland Zoo?
Yeah. But I took care of the flamingos, the Aldabra tortoises, the Simane monkeys, the baboons, and the bobcats.
Okay, so tell me, what was your favorite animal at
the
zoo?
Aldabra tortoises.
Why?
They're big. And
How old were they?
Oh, hundreds.
Ancient?
Yeah, ancient. But you'd stroke them.
Did they have
On
personalities?
their necks, and they'd stand up, and I'd make them a giant salad bowl. Yeah. The Simanes would pick on you.
That's a monkey?
An ape. Their quarters, their night quarters were in the island underneath. It's, here's their terrain, and then underneath that is their night quarters where they're locked up at night.
Okay.
And there's a moat because they don't like water. But you have to cross that moat to get into their night quarters. And they had one of those cinder blocks, as a stepping stone, but it wasn't cemented to the substrate. So you're wobbling on this thing, trying to duck the Simanes and get in the door before they pull your hair.
They were just messing with you. They were
just messing. And then, let's see, the flamingos, they scared me, because if they break a leg, they're dead. They go into shock. And they're so anxious to get out of their night house in the morning. It's all tangled legs and they're out. And I love the baboons, the little baby baboons. I'd give them basketballs. to play with.
That's so fun. I just love that.
Yeah.
So zoo is on your timeline, on your resume.
Yeah, yeah. So I was a zookeeper for, I don't know, a couple months.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 or 4, maybe longer. I don't remember, but it was hard work. I have lots of publications. But they're technical.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. But you've kind of shifted into creative writing, right?
Yeah.
Since you retired.
Our senior center had a program called Words in Bloom.
Mm-hmm.
And I joined it back in 2012, I think. Then the instructor left. Somebody else took it over, and then she got tired of doing it like a year and a half later. And so I did it from about 2014 to the pandemic, when they closed the center. So 2014 to 2020.
Wow.
And I wrote about my handicapped cats initially, and then Nolan was around already. I had written it much earlier.
Oh, fun.
It was hard to find things to write about. And so then I started, well, let's write about my background as an athletic trainer. So I wrote that journey, the road less traveled, patience and persistence pay off. And then that's at the National Athletic Trainers Association online. Then the pandemic hit. We moved.
Okay, let's stop there. You know, I only interview people who are from the Deep South, right? So please tell me, this little Berkeley girl, how in the world did you end up in
Mississippi?
Not even Laurel, but Jones County, Mississippi?
Well, as I told you, my husband has traveled all over the world, worked in many places. We were getting tired of California. We couldn't afford to work our hot tub because of the electricity.
Your hot tub? Is that what you said?
Yeah, hot tub, sorry.
No, I just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, the electricity. The electricity in California is tiered, 3 tiers. We were paying $1,000 a month for electricity. My husband has banks of computers humming away. So we couldn't work our hot tub, but then again, there's no water in California either.
Wow.
You know? So we looked at many places at electrical costs and their water, you know. And we had seen Hometown, of course,
right,
and a number of those other shows, and we thought, hey, that sounds like a pretty good place. But we were also looking in Idaho. It would have been ironic because one of the places was Nampa, Idaho, where my mother was born. And we looked at Indiana, but the costs were prohibited, but not as bad as California. So California taxes were high.
Yeah.
We were paying more, getting less, and it was just getting crazy out there.
Because where were y'all? Were y'all in Berkeley?
San Francisco.
Okay.
San Francisco Bay Area. We were in San Leandro. It was one town south of Berkeley.
Okay.
But I relied on public transportation, and I was looking for a guide dog, actually, to tell you the truth, but I never qualified, just to protect me as I rode public transportation.
You just kind of felt that unsettled when you ride.
I mean, I used to love to read. I mean, I could just chill out and read a book on BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit, the monorail subway system, but no, you got to keep your eyes open and watch things.
So did you feel like your situational awareness had to be like on high alert? Like you couldn't look down to read the book. Like, and even robbing you, or just
that they would have gangs of people hit the BART at a station, and it only sits there less than a minute, and their gang would come in, rob a car, and leave.
So they would like target people.
They would target a car.
Wow. Or target a car of people, and
the buses were just as bad. And so those were my 2 modes of getting around.
Wow.
So I mean, I could go anywhere in the Bay Area on public transportation, but it got to the point where I didn't want to. And then, of course, during COVID, who wanted to? Yeah.
And can I ask you this? I've just read things about, I mean, do you the homeless situation?
Oh, yeah.
Is that overwhelming?
It's bad, really bad, yeah. It's worse now, but, and the drugs.
Yeah.
The drug situation's really bad. But of course, you know, I grew up in the hippies, the beatniks, you know, all that. But it wasn't bad then, no.
Right, it's different, right?
Yeah, fentanyl is scary. But you just didn't feel comfortable going out to different places.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I don't know, it was getting crazy. And
tell me this. Had you ever even been to Mississippi before you guys?
I have been to Shreveport, Louisiana. Does that count?
No.
Okay. I traveled
close.
a good party of the United States.
But you had
with
never
teams.
been to Mississippi before you guys
No.
considered moving here? I think that's so hilarious.
Yeah. Well, you asked the other Californians. We bought our house virtually, and that was, it was a learning situation for us, let's face it. It's like the cat we adopted virtually during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
They looked at us when we went to pick them up. Is that the biggest carrier you have?
Wow.
I said, well, yeah. And they brought out an 18-pound cat.
In California or Mississippi?
Yeah, in California.
Oh, okay. Before you guys moved.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2020 is when you guys
moved.
Okay. Was
In
it in the middle of
October.
COVID? Okay. So in the middle of the pandemic,
Yeah.
you guys said,
With
see you
2
later.
cats and 2 dogs.
You guys drove cross country?
Yep.
Did y'all sell everything, or y'all used a U-Haul?
No.
Or
We had 3 U-Hauls worth, but then we also had to move a warehouse.
Well, and what's funny is I remember about the time you guys moved, because the road that you guys live on, I travel quite frequently to go visit my in-laws and to go visit my parents. They all
Right.
live out towards
And then all of a sudden this building
County.
showed.
So for the last few years, I've driven by your home, and I'll look out to the right and up that hill and think, I wonder what those people are up to, because of just the uniqueness of what you guys have brought to that area. But
What we found out was, we were going to build.
mm-hmm.
And that part of the land was an organic garden, a 1-acre organic garden for years, but it had been in disarray for like 5 years because the people were too ill to handle it, or they had passed away. And my husband wanted land. I would rethink that, I think, after having 3 acres. But the funny thing is,
It's kind of nice to be able to spread out.
Our 2 dog runs,
Mm-hmm.
they're adjacent to each other, are bigger than our lot was in California. And for the cost of our house, which we probably paid too much for it, was just a little bit more than the cost of our house that we bought in California in 1984. But as I said, the lot is a lot bigger, 3 acres, and we got a swimming pool. But that didn't last.
Oh.
It blew out at 2 a.m. one morning.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, so tell me about your Mississippi experience so far.
Oh, you can read all 57 chapters.
Well, do you feel like we have... I
I
know there's so many stereotypes
it's
that...
trying because we're so used to food and going out to a restaurant, We found a couple that we like here.
Yeah.
But they're in Hattiesburg, sorry.
Yeah.
We were so used to that. The choices, such a variety of food choices in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Well, yeah.
Well, and also sidewalks. I used to walk my dog every day. I'm not walking him here. And
do not walk on the side of the road.
Yeah. Bus transportation. Yeah, I have to.
You knew that coming here, right? Or did you?
Yeah, we kind of knew it. But no, we didn't know that you couldn't get an Uber out in the country.
So you had kind of thought you might use Uber to get around. Because you
So-
live further out than I do.
Yeah.
Actually.
We love the people. In California, we hardly knew our neighbors. And yet our neighbor here was, hi. Come on over for a cup of lemonade, Yeah, they were great. They are great. Although, a little bit farther away than our other neighbors were in California.
That's okay too, though, right?
Yeah.
Have some
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. So we also thought that New Orleans would not quite be as far a drive. It gets to be old after you've done it. It's kind of like us going to L.A. and you get tired of the road because you know each landmark along the way. And we didn't go to L.A.
Do y'all go to New Orleans often?
Costco.
Oh,
and
okay.
Trader Joe's. We missed Trader Joe's.
Mm-hmm.
So, but probably 4 times a year.
Okay.
Or we go to Jackson. Yeah. No, it's been an experience. I love not having the 50-mile-an-hour life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but you live in where we are, there's so many newcomers. I don't know.
Yeah. There's a lot of Californians, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
oh, we just met another Californian.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to have a group,
You should have a little meetup.
a support group. Where are the buses? Where are the sidewalks?
Well,
Yeah, I know.
those are the questions that won't be answered for some time. Anyway, well, look, I have some wrap-up questions I wanted to...
Uh-oh, are we wrapping up finally? What time is it?
Okay, here's my question. So as I was reading through your Cliff Notes that you provide your Holly Notes, there was a word that kept appearing, and it was the word volunteer. And so can you speak to what does volunteerism mean to you, and has that been a big part of your life? Or is there a reason why you've always said, I'll help?
When I was born, hit the road running.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I always have to have something fill my time.
With everything that we've talked about, the timeline of your life, what would you say was your happiest season of life?
The season I like best is softball season.
Okay.
Okay, because, I love to play it.
Okay.
One of my happiest times is to go to a ball game with my brother, a professional ball game.
Yeah.
And we sit there and mull over the strategy. But you have to have somebody that understands the game, and it's not my husband.
Do you go watch games now?
No, because I don't even no.
Okay.
I don't have a buddy to talk to strategy-wise. I've taught it.
Mm-hmm.
I've played it. I've coached it. And made a lesson plan for it.
Yeah.
So, I love softball. I wish I could, was out in California and my grandnephews were close enough that I could go watch them because they seem to be as talented as my brother was, who got to play Little League baseball.
But no. Well, we'll have to get you down the road to go watch USM softball.
Yeah, I see that the teams, the baseball teams around here are pretty talented.
Yeah. So, okay, when you look back on your life, what are you most proud of?
Surviving. Really?
Yeah.
What am I guess there's been accomplishments, but where are they in the grand scheme of things? Right. I don't know. I'm a distinguished alumni at Indiana State University. I have an AIAW honor award. I am a distinguished veteran at Iowa. Hey, what does it mean?
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's an attaboy.
Right, yeah.
Or an attagirl.
That's right, attagirl.
Yeah, I didn't do the things I did to get recognition.
Right.
I saw a need.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I could, I thought I could do it.
Right.
So I tried.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's something to be proud of, right? Yeah. You seem like you're the kind of person that has always stepped up.
Yeah, I guess so. If it needs to be done and I can do it, hey.
That's right.
And I have the time.
Except grow a garden. Right. So in your mind, Holly, how old do you feel?
Oh.
Like I have a certain age that I'm sort of stuck in that I have, but everybody's a little different.
I feel younger than I am, but not physically.
Okay.
So, but 77, I never thought I'd outlive my mother, who died at 72.
Yeah.
So my dad passed away at 81. My family isn't long-lived, whereas Kevin's was in the Navy, 90s. Yeah, his parents both passed away in the 90s.
Wow.
So
you've lived beyond your mom, right? So how does that make you feel about aging?
Well, I regret aging, but what option do you have otherwise? Because I'm no longer as agile as I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
You miss the reaction time and, knowing where your body is in space. You bump into things more.
So I guess you're someone that, like you said, you've played sports your whole life and you're very in tune, like you said, with what your body can and can't do. So you've probably noticed those changes more so than someone maybe who had not been athletic.
Yep. I could say that proprioceptive sense isn't there as much as it used to be. Knowing where your body is in space.
So that really is something that
and balance. Yeah.
Some people that I interview, they have favorite inspirational quotes that have sort of been with them through the years. Do you have a phrase or any certain quote that's been meaningful to you?
The title of my book was, The Road Less Traveled, and travel it and make a path.
Yeah.
Is Emerson one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I stole that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just the idea of always moving forward.
Yeah.
and maybe taking a
Making
road.
way.
Yeah.
Making a way.
So in the years to come, what are your goals for life?
Living.
For Holly Wilson Green, what are your goals? Anything in particular? I know your writing is important to you.
Yeah. Just to keep on. Keep on going.
Stay busy, huh?
And helping as much as you can. I just got asked to be on the board of directors of SCAR. So
what is SCAR?
Southern Cross Animal Rescue.
Okay.
So we try and help. We try and help that rescue, and then Murray Wyndham. We try and help her.
That's where my dog came from.
Oh, really? Cool.
Well, do you have any other closing thoughts or remarks?
No.
To reflect
I hope
back on?
people find this interesting. I don't know.
Well, and also people can find you at the Veterans Museum, right? Don't you
Yeah,
spend some
yeah,
time at the
Thursdays, not every Thursday, but that group is amazing. Going back to your one question, I thank God I'm an American.
So our Veterans Museum here in Jones County, it's all volunteer based as well, right?
Yeah.
The people that work there, they give their time freely.
Yep.
And the times I've been there, well, that's how you and I met.
Yeah, right.
I just stopped by the Veterans Museum to chat with another fun person, and
Peg?
Miss Peg,
Yeah.
and then there comes Holly Green.
Tooting my own horn.
No, I love it though, and I appreciate your service to our country. It means a lot, and
I'd do it again.
and
I
that's
would.
awesome to say.
Yeah.
Was that one of the highlights of your life, your naval experience?
Yeah, probably.
Well, thank you for your service to this country and just all of the. I just think it's so cool that I started playing girls sports as just like a little third grade girl, and I played all the way through high school, and I just don't think I've ever really sat and thought about who or what had to be done to pave the way for me to be able to do those things. And so I appreciate your passion and your just drive to see sports, and particularly women's sports, move ahead.
Yeah. This last year was the 50th anniversary of athletics at University of Iowa, the Hawkeye program. And so I went back.
50 years of women's?
Women's, yeah. I went back, and it was pretty amazing because I got to catch up with some of the women who were the athletes I took care of in that, the infancy of real women's sports.
Yeah.
So this year at Iowa is the 50th anniversary of the athletic training program, the educational program. I'm debating whether I'm going because November is pretty cold in Iowa.
That's true.
Yeah.
And you're a Southern girl now. You can't handle that cold weather, right?
Hey, when I went back in 2022 for the Distinguished Veteran Award, I went back a week early because I wanted to, retrace things. And it was 70 degrees, okay? And this is early November in Iowa. The day before the game, it snowed. It was 37 degrees at that football game. I'm sorry I left at halftime.
I would have been right there with you. I don't think I could have handled it.
Yeah. We beat Wisconsin, though. So, but it was cool. I mean, there were 7 of us. One was awarded the distinction after his death. He was a Vietnam veteran. But 2 women, myself and another woman who was a Navy dentist. And she was the first female dentist in the Navy. And she was really cool. Yeah. And but she was an officer. No. She was fun. And then another enlisted guy who worked at Iowa then. Who worked at Iowa then, and then 3 other men who were way up there. Colonels and generals and stuff,
Okay. Well, I'm going to be keeping my eye on you here in Jones County because I know you're a mover and a
much
shaker.
trouble. I'll put you on speed dial to bail me out.
I don't know how much help I am, but anyway, I appreciate you though, Holly, taking the time to sit and chat with me.
There's not anything else to cover.
Have we done it all?
I think.
Do you think
I don't know.
have we checked all the things off your list?
No, never. I tell you, spontaneous generation.
Well, guess what? Maybe we'll do a part 2.
Oh, no.
If you think of some other things. So anyway, Miss Holly Green, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
If a smile, blessed Savior, as we go, not let a sailor stumble as we go along God's way. Lead us on, Lord Jesus, for that happy home high. I just sin, my blood so precious.